Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the Gnarly Gnome. This is Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft, and there are few things that I enjoy more than new breweries. Stopping at new breweries, trying new beers, meeting new people at new breweries, or older people that our paths have probably crossed a few times at new breweries. However it works, I enjoy this so much, and I'm excited to do this show. DVD Brew over in Lebanon, or not Loveland. Lebanon, Loveland, L's this side of town. I live on the other side of the wall over in the other side of town. Forgive me. Loveland, second brewery in Loveland. But the first brewery on this side of the river. There's a lot to unpack with what this place is and what this place can be and hopefully will be. And we're going to talk about it all. Welcome to the show, guys. Let's start down the row. Everybody, introduce yourselves. Tell people who you are and what you do here.
So I'm, Dana Deppenbrock. I'm actually the scientist of this whole thing. So I'm owner-operator. I just kind of mainly oversee things now.
You were the crazy person that decided to open a brewery in Cincinnati.
At a car wash.
in a car wash. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
My name's Keith. I'm the head brewer. So I'm overseeing everything over in the brewery. I'm the only guy over there at the moment. So anything beer related before it gets to the tap room, that's my job.
Perfect.
And I'm Bobby. So when I initially applied, I was just going to bartend. And then when I came in, I have a day job. I work in IT, and Dana was like, hey, we could use an IT guy around here. So I started doing, a little bit of the IT, and then, my family owns a couple other restaurants, and I got, into management there in front of house. And then there was kind of a need to co-manage the front of house with one of our other guys. So he and I kind of co-manage the front of house. I wear a lot of hats after.
It's kind of the way it
Keith
works.
Gives us the beer from the brewery.
It's fun, like when you watch a new brewery open and you see different people kind of settle into different roles, and you start to see where some of those gaps are and where they need filled, and watching how they get filled and how things shift and evolve. And it's different for every spot. Like there's some places that may have an extreme need for one type of a person, and there's somebody else that may not need that at all. And so it's fun kind of watching that evolve and grow and change and evolve and change, and that's you guys are still very new. Technically, you have an actual grand opening that is when people are listening to this, it already happened. It's happening this weekend when we're recording it, but you guys have been open for what, a month-ish? Is that about right?
Right about actually, yeah. Yes.
Patty's Day weekend, you guys opened your doors, and were slammed. You guys were nice and busy, and clearly people are excited about having a brewery here, which I want to talk about. But first, we got to drink a beer because it's a craft beer podcast. We call it From the Beer Fridge because we used to be in studio and we had a fridge and we would pull beers out of it. Now that it's different now, but it's fine. From the beer tap. You guys tell me where to start here on this flight, and tell me what we're drinking, and we'll keep rolling through it.
Let's see here. So probably the first one you might want to start with is this one, the 7. That's our Oktoberfest.
Oh, speaking my language, I am the Oktoberfest guy. I don't know how much you follow kind of some of the stuff that I do, but every fall I drink every single packaged Oktoberfest that gets released in Cincinnati and run them all through a bracket to determine what the best Oktoberfest beer is, which last year it was Sonder. Shout out to Sonder for Cincinnati's best Oktoberfest last year.
Sonder does make a good Oktoberfest.
It's a great one. Still on tap there also for anybody that is an Oktoberfest lover like me. Talk about the beer. Tell me about kind of the inspiration behind it. Fest beer, Märzen. How do you figure out where in that spectrum you go?
I think it's more of a Märzen, isn't it? Right, Dana? That's a Märzen beer.
Correct.
It's not a fest beer, but and that's actually Dana's recipe, and that's award-winning in a homebrew competition.
Tell me about how you came up with the recipe, how you decided to go Märzen versus fest beer. It feels like there is a there is a spectrum there now. Like nothing's clear cut anymore. Like it's become there's a lot of festy Märtzens and a lot of Märzen-y fest beers and everything in between.
Right. So originally, again, I've been home brewing for 25 years, I guess, and I would make several different versions over the time, and I found that the Marzen style was more of my liking, and also I always wanted to do this, and my thought process was that I want to have an Oktoberfest that's here all the time.
Right.
So it's just more of a year-round beer.
This
easy
turn on
drinking.
having this year-round because that's a kind of that in itself is a gutsy move to put an Oktoberfest on,
Right.
And anticipate that it'll sell in July.
Correct.
There's weirdos like me that will definitely buy it, but I think March 1st when they first opened had a Bach that they were like, we're going to do this year round. It's a very Cincinnati thing. We want this Bach beer. And I think it lasted maybe 6 months or something.
Yeah.
Like, this is dumb. We can't do this.
We'll find out, won't we?
It's hard to kind of, and Oktoberfest is very different than Bach. Bach requires a lot of conversation over the bar, but you do have to kind of talk to people about it. I guess, let me retract on my statement a little bit. Northern Road does an Oktoberfest year round, but they call it a German amber lager.
Okay.
To kind of, which really does sometimes make a difference with consumers when they come in. They're like, I don't want an October beer right now. I don't drink October beer right now, even though Oktoberfest is not really an October beer. But if you call it a German amber lager, they all of a sudden forget, it's a good beer. I'll drink that. This is great beer. Nice. It's kind of got a smooth kind of I don't want to call it creaminess because I think that gives people the wrong impression, but like just a smooth kind of character to it. It's not super zippy, which is definitely a technical term. But I think sometimes the fest beers lean into their just a little zippier, and this is like when the sun goes down and you're sitting out on the patio,
right.
and this is what I want to be drinking. Good beer.
Cool.
So said you've been home brewing for, you said 25 plus years. Talk about kind of the journey to decide to open a brewery, because 25 years ago, that was a very different idea than what it is today. 5 years ago, it was a different idea. 10 years ago, it was a different idea.
Right.
Why decide to do it now? Were you a little worried that the market is crowded, that everybody says that the craft beer is in some kind of a bubble, which I disagree with, but why decide to do it now?
So honestly, I'm not far from, I have a real job as well, so I'm not far from retirement.
Right.
And I'm one that I don't like to just do nothing. So I've always wanted to do this, and I just thought, you know what, let's just do it. Yeah, it's getting a little overcrowded, but I still think there's a lot of people out there that enjoy their craft beer, that like to come to different places.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, there's only one other, brewery on this part of town. So I thought this would be a great location as well.
Did you look at other locations?
Oh yeah, I spent 2 years looking, and this kind of came by accident. I was.
And we'll talk about the actual space in a minute. But.
Yeah. So yeah, it was. I just ran into it and took it from there.
The thing that I think a lot of people when they hear about Cincinnati craft beer, or they think about Cincinnati craft beer, they there's X amount of breweries, which depending on how you count it can be anywhere from 50 something to 70 breweries in the greater Cincinnati area. That's a lot of places, but there are still like so many little gaps within that depending on how big you want your brewery to be, which again we'll talk about.
Sure.
There's a lot of spaces like that. Second Brewery in Loveland, and you've got a great neighbor over there at Narrow Path. They make killer beer, but they are a very neighborhood focused spot, and their neighborhood is right over there on the other side of the river. Number one, in downtown Loveland, which sometimes gets a little crowded. If I lived over here, there are days where I would probably dread, like, oh man, I just want to go grab a beer over at Narrow Path, but I don't really want to deal with it. To be able to have a spot on this side that it's like, okay, here's the spot over here, there's the spot over there. There's probably a lot of cross traffic back and forth. You're at one, you go to the other, back and forth. It's I think that this fills a perfect gap over here, and I think that there are still so many areas around town that have these big gaps of places that there's people that love craft beer that don't have their own spot. And so I think there's a lot of room. Now, not everybody's going to be Rheingeist. Nobody is going to be Rheingeist to go even further than that. For you guys, how big do you want to be? How big is too big is the question that we used to always ask. What is that kind of level of you want to grow a little bit. You want to sell more beer. Maybe get a couple tap handles around town. You guys, even before the tap room was open, you were sending a couple beers out there to some places. How does that break down? Do you know how that breaks down?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. If we get to the point where we don't have beer on tap,
Right.
then to me we've grown. We're already at that point. We're not there now, but if we get to that point, it's like, okay, we need to either slow things down, or figure out a way to, create more space or
Right.
whatnot. That's down the road. Obviously, me personally, I'd like to just keep it the way it is right now.
Right.
I don't really want it to be some crazy, brewery. Just a nice small place everybody can enjoy, come to, and that's it.
So no huge plans to distribute beer across the city.
No.
Packaging.
That could be down the road.
Would it be, or I say would it be? In theory, because again, we're looking into the future. We're looking at kind of where you're at now versus where you'll be at in a couple of years. Are you talking, kind of special release stuff, or like, hey, maybe we'll have a cooler and we have, core beers that people can come in and grab in 6-packs and take home with them. Maybe we'll have 6-packs on the shelves at Cappy's or wherever else. What is that? What does packaging in your head right now look like for you?
I think at least for the way it is now, what it would have to be starting out with the volume we can produce over there is maybe some special, maybe some barrel-aged beers and do some bottles of that. But if we were to, say, can half of a batch of beer here, it'd be like we're kind of... we don't have any left for our
Right.
cooler,
Right.
you know what I mean? So
let's go into that a little bit. Let's tell people kind of you guys 5-barrel system.
yeah, it's a 5-barrel brew house over there.
So it's nano, right? Like, what's the definition of a nano versus something else? Isn't it like 5 or under, and that 6 or
I'm
under,
not
something
sure.
like that? I don't know.
I thought
small.
it was 3 and under.
3 and under.
That's what I'm thinking. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's little. It's not. It's
Yeah,
not
it's not
big.
big.
It's enough that you have a little bit of wiggle room, but you have to keep brewing.
Correct.
You can't stop and think
Yeah.
about things very often. So there's a lot of beers then that come on tap here, which is kind of what I love about that size system, is that you're forced to brew often, which means you can brew lots of different stuff and you can fill up lots of taps. You guys have what, 30
30
taps?
total.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 29 because of that middle tap handle right in the middle that we will also talk about. But that's a lot of space to do a lot of different things. How do you... Okay, we're shifting down lots of different rabbit holes like very quickly here. How do you decide kind of how that breaks down on tap? How do you guys balance out different styles and things like that? How do you do that?
Well, I think initially right now it's so everything that's on tap right now is Dana's recipes. So what's there now is what we've decided to start with, and I think something we're going to do is, give it a couple months to look at sales,
Right.
see what's sold. And we do have
You should have a little
a
bit of a
couple
picture of
beers
that right now.
are, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely stuff that we're looking at brewing as soon as we can again.
Yeah.
So we're not running out.
Can I make
But-
some guesses? Because I've,
Sure.
just a couple times that I've been sitting at the bar, the peanut butter is the one that I hear a lot of people talk about.
We sell a lot of peanut butter. Yep.
But it's still not the highest.
It's not
No.
the highest.
Let me look at the list here and see if I can. I mean, the easy one would
Can
be.
I tell you a little quick
IPA.
story about the peanut butter?
Oh, the blood orange IPA. Is that the highest?
is.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about that too. Yeah, tell me a story about the peanut butter.
So, for probably 10 years, I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with Beer and Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would always enter at least 6 kegs, sometimes 8 kegs of beer, always peanut butter. And of all the kegs, all of them I won awards with. The peanut butter, never won an award. It was the only one that the keg was totally empty every year.
Well, that's funny. Like it's there is something to that. There are beers that that you talk about loudly when you taste them. That's something that completely blows you away. It's different. It's exciting. It stands out. Not that the peanut butter wouldn't, but then there are things that you just want to drink.
Yeah.
And you just like that. You don't like. They don't stand out like the next day when you're talking about it to somebody. But when you're sitting at the bar, this is what I drink.
Yeah.
And like I think that. I hope that people are starting to drift back to that a little bit. There was a lot of hype around certain beer styles or even like alternative type of beverages, seltzer and, what else,
Yeah.
whatever else is happening, slushy machines and all kinds of stuff. There were a lot of things happening around that people were loud about. And I think that because of that, people are now looking for some kind of familiarity and some kind of comfort and some kind of drinkability, for lack of a better word.
Right.
That something like the peanut butter porter just does perfectly. It tastes like peanut butter and chocolate, and you just want to sit and just drink it. We also live in a city with an incredible peanut butter porter in Nutcase, and so people are familiar with it already. And
Right.
it's if it was, 15 years ago, people are like, oh man, a dark peanut butter beer, that's brilliant. Whereas now it's like, oh yeah, we got that. So it's hard to create something that get people to stop dead in their tracks. I'm like, oh, I've never tasted anything
Right.
like that before. That brings up a question too. I mean, so how do you try to innovate in a space like this where it's not a big place. It's not designed to crank out beer to the furthest reaches of every corner of Cincinnati. How do you make things that you think will to capture the attention of the neighborhood people that are just coming here because this is their spot, and kind of push them to try something that is a little bit different?
I think maybe one thing that makes us a little different is the volume of lager beers we have.
You guys have a lot of lagers on.
Yeah.
How many right now? Do we know off the top of our heads?
No, we have to count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them.
Yeah, I guess
That's
so.
pretty good.
6 or 7.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm kind of a traditionalist.
Sure.
So most of the beers are beers that I've made for a long time, that I enjoy, and I know that it shouldn't be about me. It's more about
There's
the
a balance.
customer.
There's a balance there.
Yeah, but I like more of the traditional beers versus some of these odd, crazy things, But you gotta have them.
How traditional do you guys get with it? How militant about using traditional actual lager yeast versus some of the quick lager stuff, or how crazy do you get?
Yeah, so all the lagers are true lagers. And maybe one thing that could be related to this is that our Czech Pilsner, that's brewed with the Pilsner Kel yeast. We do a step mash and
I assume Saaz hops.
yep, sauce.
Better be.
Of course.
All Czech ingredients, nothing outside of that.
Well, and there's like, not that every beer has to be traditional, but there's something about that like as a beer drinker I want. I like if somebody calls something a Czech Pilsner or a German Pilsner, it better be German or Czech ingredients.
I
Or else
totally
what
agree.
are we doing? Some of those lines get a little blurry now, and it gets a little strange. And I get that doing things just for the sake of tradition is not the right way to do it. Like, you should be able to push some of those lines and try to kind of innovate, and that is part of what brewing is about. But man, if I drink another German Pilsner that doesn't taste like a German Pilsner, I'm gonna lose my mind. Speaking of beers, let's drink another one as we keep going along this
speaking
journey
of
here.
Pilsners, go to the Czech
This
Pils.
27.
Yep.
Yep.
So off the bat, it looks like a Pilsner, which it seems silly, and it seems like I shouldn't have to say that, but there are so many Pilsners that people, quote unquote Pilsners, that people are making that just they put it in the glass and they put it in front of me, and I'm like, man, I think you poured me the wrong beer. This doesn't
It looks like that.
yeah, like that, or yeah, man. What are you doing? How can you look at this and be happy with it and accept that this is a Czech Pilsner? It's a little bit ambitious to off the bat when you open your doors to have a style that is a little more finicky than other ones on tap. Were you a little worried about that? Like, how is it you guys?
We got the best brewer in town. What are you talking about?
Look, I'm just asking the questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was certainly some worry on my part. This is the first time I've been in this position,
Right.
so it's like,
Well, how long had you been brewing on the system before you decided to go Pilsner?
I think maybe 10 batches about.
So it wasn't you had some time with it too to kind of figure things out and figure out the little intricacies of a new system. That's good. It's a style that reminds me of so many different experiences and so many different people and so many different places, and just good floral, just perfect. That's I love that, man. That's a fun beer. It's a beer that again captures that piece of like just beer love that is in my soul.
Yeah.
That just like there are some beers that are fun to drink and fun new ingredients and whatever. We'll say Blood Orange IPA, like it's fun. I like a beer like that, but this like just immediately takes me somewhere else, and that's what I really like about beer.
So a shout out to that. The name of that beer is called Chucky's Czech Pils. So it's a really good friend of mine that he's a huge beer enthusiast. So that's one of his favorites.
So let's go to the beers. It seems like all of the beers are named after somebody.
Correct.
Are they all? How does that happen? How does are they just all friends, people you've kind of encountered along your journeys? Are they?
Yeah, a lot of mostly friends and family. A lot of people I work with. I've worked with for a while, and a lot of people that came and helped during the construction, demo. A lot of people would come out and just would spend the whole weekend with me, tearing walls out, and so
I
they're
promise
all
I'll
on
name
there.
a beer after you.
Yeah, exactly. I almost felt guilty if I didn't put them on there. But so yeah, that's pretty much the story behind all that.
I like it. It gives it more of like a personal kind of touch to it.
Yeah.
And then those people can go, that's my beer. You come in and that's a beer named after me. Which
I think it's a
is
very
always fun.
good like conversation starter too, with like when the bartenders are talking about beer. You know what I mean? That opens the door for some different conversation, and especially if that person's here. You know what I mean? I think it's just a well-rounded, small town kind of brewery where you have a lot more conversation. You know what I mean? It's not just
There's a fella named Brian that's been in several times that we've kind of made friends with, and
He's here right now.
oh,
Actually.
okay, right now. Well, he'll order the Brian is Insane IPA, and I always tell him, "Hey, that's your beer, man. We made that for you. We've been waiting on you to try it."
He even tells everybody when it comes in, like, yeah, they definitely didn't name this beer after me, but I feel like I have to drink it because my name's Brian.
I've adopted it. I get that. Like, there's plenty of times where I'm grabbing a beer from Nomagong that Nomagong or what are some other gnome beers. There's a Dancing Gnome Brewery. There's a couple other ones. I get it if I see it. I'm like, oh yeah, we got to go there. We got to get that beer. We got to. I understand. Let's talk about the space. We mentioned earlier car wash, which when you think about it, it sounds ridiculous, and it sounds like it would be very uncomfortable and very small and doesn't make any sense. And I'm curious how many people when they walk in here now think it when they are walking up to the building versus how many people sit down and if you tell them like, oh, that makes so much sense, because this turned out perfect. Like, this turned out so good. So you've got the kind of the car wash building. Picture any kind of self-service car wash where you've got the bays. All of the walls have been torn out in between each one of them, but all of the doors in the front stayed but got replaced with nice, fancy glass garage doors. So it's a long, kind of skinny, narrow tap room with garage doors on the front. And then the separate building, which is where the automatic car wash, where you go in and the little brushes do their thing. That's now where the brewery is. I think it's perfect.
It's great having a nice drain all the way through the center of that building over there. It's easy to keep clean.
I'm sure power was an issue, was not an issue, and water was not an issue. Like, everything was kind of ready to go on that end. But just the feeling of it is great. And I would have never thought that ahead of time. Like, I would have never oh yeah, you could do that. That would work great. No, I would have never dreamed it. It turned out awesome.
There are sorry to interrupt you, but I was going to say there are a lot of people that come in like, wow, a couple of years ago, like, this is where I used to wash my car, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy. We live 3 or 4 minutes from here, and we used to go and wash our car, and whatever the case may be, right? And now I think that
well, it's a perfect charity fundraiser idea too. In the summertime, you guys have to do a car wash at some point and have people washing cars, and
for sure. But I think it's a good transition, right? That people used to come here to wash their car, and now they have we've talked about it a couple times now, but on this side of the river, right? It's not a car wash anymore, but they do have that local hometown brewery that we want to go out and get a beer. You can.
When you first saw the space, did you think it would be something that would work, or did you kind of look at it and be like, oh, there's no way?
No, actually, when I first looked at it, I spoke with the realtor and I asked, hey, are there some drawings that I can have? And they're like, no, there's nothing. So they let me go through and just basically, I measured everything out, sketched everything up on a
giant bar napkin.
Yeah. a 3 foot by 2 foot piece of paper, and just started putting my ideas down on, where I wanted what. And, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be perfect. When I found it, I'm like, this is it. This is, I think I can make this work. Well, I put everything together, found a contractor, said, what do you think? He said, are you crazy? He said, but we'll see what we can do. So he, put real drawings together, and we made a little change here and there, but I couldn't be happier.
It turned out great. And so decor wise, there's a lot of things that I assume were just I call them your buddy's basement kind of stuff. A lot of Cincinnati beer kind of memorabilia, a lot of just basement bar stuff. It's beer steins and glassware and advertisements and things like that.
Everything that's on the wall was in my little tiny basement in Madisonville.
I knew it.
Right over there.
Yeah,
that one was mine.
Everything else was there.
It's funny because with that type of thing, you can come and you can sit at the bar and you'll look up and be like, oh yeah, like my grandpa had that,
Yeah.
or oh yeah, like I saw that at so and so's house. Like you, like it again, much like a good Pilsner, it immediately takes you somewhere else
Sure.
and reminds you of things and like transports you into a different memory, which is to me what drinking is supposed to do. It's supposed to take you somewhere else, that to a different experience or a different place or a memory.
Right.
And, you nailed it. Like it's clean, it's modern, but at the same time it's nostalgic and feels like not that it feels like it's been here forever, because it doesn't. It feels new, but
Yeah.
it just, there are things that transport you, which I think is super important.
I love how, that was so ironic. Like, you were like, it gives out like a buddy's basement kind of feel. And we're like, well, it is our buddy's basement.
But I mean, you get that. You get that impression. You feel it. You understand it when you walk in, even if somebody's not standing at the door telling you, like, oh, here's the idea behind this.
Right.
Here's where all this came from. Like it's you get it immediately. Big patio on the front. I think that's really important to tell people, because there's very few things that are more enjoyable than sitting outside on a patio, drinking a good beer. And you guys have a big patio that covers kind of the whole front of the building, and plenty of parking around the building, unless it's one of those nights where it's really crazy in here. But you can figure it out. Are they gonna do some kind of sidewalks for you guys? Is that gonna happen?
That's
Are they
supposed
still
to happen.
discussing?
They're still talking about it. I believe they're aiming for spring of next year. So we'll see.
Just be careful. Be careful if you're walking around here.
Yeah.
But there is plenty of parking. How do you kind of shape going forward the things that you do push into and the things that you don't? Maybe on the beer side, maybe bigger, but like how do you figure out what is most important for a tap room when you just open up and you're still just trying to get your feet under you? Does that make sense? Like, how do you get this? You get an impression, at the very beginning of beers that people are enjoying. Is there, so like, if you make something that you haven't made before, that is maybe a milkshake IPA or some kind of more trendy style, maybe that brings in new people that are driving past this place to go somewhere else, versus people like this. So we're gonna make more of this. Like, how do you figure out where to push and where not to? Does that question make any sense?
Just, it's all measurables, basically. I actually, every week I'm looking at the sales as far as what's working best and what's not. And we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 more beers that we're brewing. One is going to be Keith Brew, and then another one's going to be another friend of ours that has kind of helped us along the way. But yeah, I mean, basically, we just have to keep an eye on everything.
But like you said, you're a traditional beer lover, which I am too. I would struggle sometimes, like being like, all right, so we should probably try something that is very not traditional. If the things that are super traditional are selling, there's not, you don't really need to do that,
Right?
But at some point, you have to try it, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have anything against doing anything like that, and having as many taps as we do. I think we can have a little bit of everything.
Right.
And I think going back to something that you said earlier, like, how did we decide what to start with? You know what I mean? Like, these are all Dana's recipes that he's had for years, right? We put something on that doesn't do well, right? Like, we take that off and like maybe do something different in the future,
Right.
that will do well. You know what I mean? I think it's just still figuring it out because we're still so new.
Trial and error.
How does so coming from the home brewing side, where you have people over, I assume you had a great basement to hang out on with lots of beer on tap. The feedback you get from that situation is very different from the feedback you get once you go commercial and it's people paying for the beer. How do you deal with somebody that walks in and you've got a beer that maybe it's an award-winning beer, maybe it's something that everybody loved before, and now all of a sudden it doesn't work here? How do you deal with that kind of What do you guys mean?
Yeah,
this was fine for the last 25 years. Why all of a sudden is it not working here? How do you do that in your
You
head?
got to have an open mind. Everybody has their own opinion. You cannot judge them because they're
you
telling
can.
you that
I like to judge lots of people for their opinions.
but they're paying customers.
Still valid.
So, you just, to me, it's probably harder for Keith because he's the one that's now making those beers. But when I hear that, hey, this guy says this really isn't an IPA. I don't know why you're calling it an IPA.
Right.
There's other ones you can try. It's what I've been making this beer for a long time. Everybody has their own opinion. I totally get it. Just like why we have that one single thing over there.
Let's go ahead and talk about that.
I was waiting for you to bring that
So
up.
let's talk about it. The biggest tap behind the bar, the brightest tap behind the bar, the one thing that stands out is a tap of Mick Ultra. I heard, sitting at the bar, this is some kind of a licensing thing, which I don't know how that I don't know how that works. Talk about that a little bit.
So we have two licenses.
Okay.
One is our A1C license. Are you familiar with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other one is an A1A. So with the A1A, they piggyback that A1A onto the A1C.
Right.
But in order for you to be able to have that A1A, which allows you to sell, liquor or whatnot, there's some weird things in that law that you must follow.
Right.
So one is you have to have a warm meal available at all hours.
Ramen noodles, perfect
Correct.
solution. I like Hot Pockets also is a good solution.
Yeah. And one is you must have a non-DVD brew beer available. Now,
It doesn't have to be on
it
tap.
doesn't have to be on
and
tap.
it doesn't have to be the biggest tap handle behind the bar. I feel like you could have a 12-pack stashed underneath the bar somewhere that would satisfy the.
It is mainly it's mainly there noticeable because and I've had friends tell me this, that I love going to these breweries and stuff, but my wife won't go. She doesn't like wine. She'll drink a Miller Lite or, something like that. But it's keeping me from coming because she doesn't,
Sure.
she's the boss.
Sure.
And it's, believe it or not, it's helped keep people in here.
How many have you sold? Like, is it a measurable number?
Yes.
Are you charging more or less than your own beers?
Less.
There's a lot of things I don't like about this. There's a lot. I've heard through the years lots of other places that kind of went that same route, and they would put it on. And okay, we'll sell a macro beer, but it's it's gonna be $11 for a pint. And yes, people still paid it. But like I that is the biggest thing that I do not like about what's happening here. I just, every time I look over it, I see that big giant tap handle staring at me.
And prices are subject to change, right? Like,
Sure.
The law says we have to change it by the first day of the month, and it has to be consistent for the next 30 days. But I also think there's something to be said about a draft beer. Right, like we have bottles of cider. You know what I mean? We do sell a cider here that is in bottles. We sell the neutral. We sell. I think there's a couple things that play into that. One, people like draft beer over cans, right?
I agree,
and I think that would keep people here longer. And we've already seen data that proves that it keeps people here longer. But additionally, the real estate that we have, right, on the bar, tap handles, and then behind the bar.
Sure.
I think that it's more beneficial to be on a tap handle than to not, right?
Yes.
One, we're selling beer, but it keeps people here longer. And then we have some additional real estate that we can carry. We started carrying some new like mom waters and some new neutrals that people have requested. But if I had 24 cans of Mick Ultra behind my bar because we have to, right? It's going to take away from something else that brings more people here. You know what I mean?
If you want to carry like seltzer products and stuff too, and I don't know Mom Water very well. Is that actually a seltzer or is it like a vodka?
It's a vodka.
So
Yeah.
I mean, like wouldn't like
carbonated.
White Claw or something like that satisfy the same thing as the Mick Ultra is of carrying a beer?
Because we can't sell on Sundays. We don't have our Sunday license, and we are.
But
As far as I'm aware, we can't sell seltzers.
Can't sell liquor.
Yeah, but so a malt-based seltzer though would not be a liquor. It would be a beer product.
I guess it would be a beer product. We could, in that same breath, right? Like, we do things a little bit differently.
There's
here.
lots of A1A license holders that do not have a tap of Mick Ultra behind their bar.
Right, which is fairly understandable. We, every place sells Mick Ultra. Every place sells White Claw, right?
Sure.
Every place.
I'd say High Noon is probably the thing now.
Yeah, between High Noon and White Claw, everybody has them everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
With the beer selection that we have, I don't want to just be another, and this is something I've talked to Dana a lot about. I don't want to just be another place that like, oh, let's go grab a White Claw, right? I think having the Mom Water, I mean, we have Surfsides back there. We have a little bit of variety, you know what I mean? And I think that's, I don't want to just be another brewery, right? I want to do something that kind of sets us apart.
Mm-hmm.
And having those options and not just strictly White Claw is a better option, right? Again, we've already seen data in the month that we've been open that it keeps people here longer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not something I won't look into in the future. It's just not. We're still figuring it out.
We can put a big, speaking of golf right here, we can put a golf club head cover over top of it. What do you think about that?
I was thinking about like a big. Well, we won't go there. Something. I think we could think of something creative that.
I think it's also noteworthy that our tap handles were. You made those, didn't you?
Well, yeah, so do you want to go down that road?
Yeah. Let's go.
So if you notice, the tap handles are a hammer.
Yes.
So my trade, my whole life was a sheet metal worker, and that was my, hammer.
Right.
It was with me at all times till I went into sales and whatnot. But so I wanted that to be the tap handle. So I took my hammer and mocked up what I wanted and sent it off to a place that actually makes the tap handles, and they made their mock and sent it back. I'm like, I love it.
It's cool because like it again tells the story of kind of who you are and who this place is, which there is still a little bit of confusion about that. People DVD, they walk in here and I don't know what they're expecting.
What are we gonna watch today?
Where's the movies?
Right. There is still some kind of confusion about that, but finding things that tell that story once you sit down and here's what this place is. Here's how it happened. I think it's good, and I love the tap handles. I love most of the tap handles.
I also think, going back to the whole Mick Ultra thing, if you look on our menu right there, it's not on there. It's not on my digital menu board. It's not something that I
well, it doesn't have to be when you sit at the bar. It's in your face.
I get that. But as you know, right, tap handles are given to us by those, I can't control the size of the tap handle.
Right.
If I could, it might be a little different. I mean, that's something we can look at in the future, but
There are
now
smaller ones. I can make a call to get you a smaller one.
I think right now we were focused on just opening and
No, I gotta poke at you guys for something, and that's the one thing that we're gonna.
I knew it was gonna come up. I read your blog post.
Let's drink another beer.
If you drink the number 9,
okay,
that's actually what I got in my hand.
It's the white IPA.
It's the white
so this
IPA.
is with the newest beer.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about it.
It's a white IPA. It's got a bunch of wheat. There's coriander. It's American yeast, not a Belgian yeast. Coriander. There's grapefruit peel, orange zest.
So yeah, just if we can call a white IPA traditional, just a straight up traditional white IPA, what you're used to, but good, super refreshing, perfect for warm weather, perfect for patio drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, good beer.
I think the artwork's kind of cool on that too. It's called Waltz White IPA.
Right, it takes a
Dana's
nod
a big
from
Breaking Bad
Breaking
fan.
Bad. It takes a nod from it. It's not. It just takes a nod. People get all upset about
I
things.
know. And that's actually me on the photo, so just saying it's not actually Walt, the real Walt.
Keep wearing a hat.
There is an uncanny resemblance, though.
Okay,
Put a
whatever.
black hat on.
No, that's a good beer. It's one of those styles that I feel like we're not seeing a lot of lately, and I enjoy them a lot. Like I like the body that it brings to it, and kind of takes it down a different road than what a lot of IPAs are these days. I don't know. We could go down what happened to IPA, but let's talk about Road to Craft. We talked about kind of how you got into commercial brewing. How did you get into home brewing? How did that start? How did you discover "quote unquote" better beer?
Yeah, so I drank Miller Lite,
Not Mick Ultra.
not Mick Ultra.
Well,
Miller
I guess that
Lite
probably wasn't around.
since I was 15, 16.
21. He was 21. Everybody.
That was always just my go-to beer.
Right.
And I was at a wedding out in California 25 years ago, and I had this beer called Hefeweizen. I'm like, man, this is really good. And I came back home, and I went looking all over for this Hefeweizen.
Yeah.
Nobody's got this Hefeweizen. So that was right around when the internet came out. So I found this thing where you can search. So I started searching, and I found Listerman's, which was a homebrew shop.
Yeah.
That's really all they were at the time. And went there and said, hey, I want to make this beer called yada, yada, yada. And he says, you ever done this before? I said, no. He gave me a kit to give this a try. Just read the directions, you'll figure it out. And from there, it was,
Did it turn out the first one?
it was absolutely wonderful.
I feel like that's a style that has a little bit of forgiveness
It
to
does.
it.
It does. Now, whether it was a true, Hefeweizen, it was good to me at the time. Anyway, as time progressed, I went from the kits to all grain.
How fast did that progression happen for you?
Probably 2 years. I got bored with it.
Right.
I had to, go to the next level and the next level, and I basically had just a gravity fed system.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I want to make a bigger batch. And so I finally got into an electric system, a half barrel system.
Right.
That probably 8 or 9 years ago is when I did that. And 2019, I actually won the Bachfest
Right.
competition or whatever. And after that, I was like, I'm going to start thinking about this a little more seriously. And, because again, I'm not far from retiring, and I enjoy doing this, and I want to share it with people. That's
Right.
the biggest thing. I want to share it with people. And thank God we have got the best staff of people, starting, the brewer, Bobby being IT, or just everybody. It's just, we've been so blessed with the people that we have gotten. So, that's now where we are.
What about
On that comment, though, I want to just point out Dana in that, right? Like, I think it starts from the top down. When you have good leadership, it makes your management team function a whole lot better.
or vice versa? You see places that have bad up top that just kind of starts to poison everything.
And then once it trickles down to us as his, management team, right? I think that just funnels down to our bartenders as well.
Sure.
I would agree with that. I think Dana doesn't give himself enough credit enough of the time, and that's my job.
Yeah,
But when you
he's
have
not supposed to.
but when you have a good leader that makes working an enjoyable and a a pleasurable,
Yeah.
thing, it just makes it flow a lot better. But I also agree. I don't think we could have found better staff to open with.
Well, let's go to you then. What was your road to craft? How did you find craft beer?
So I just like beer. I'm a big fan of Rheingeist. Their rosé ale bubbles is my favorite. I've had that on my kegerator at home for 4 years. I don't brew, right? I walk over and I watch Keith brew, and I'm like, how do you know all this? But I also like a wide variety of craft beer too, right?
Were you always like from when you first started drinking beer into craft beer, or was there a moment where you kind of made that shift?
So no, at first I hated craft beer.
Okay.
I started with the Miller Genuine Draft.
Okay. Reminds me of my grandpa.
The old MGD. It's what my dad drinks, and it's one of the very first that I tried. But I was either on that or Miller Lite or a Mick Ultra. I guess it was probably Mad Tree when we took a work trip to Mad Tree for a happy hour, and I tried their shade. It's that
blackberry
Goza. Tart.
Yeah.
So good. And then I started branching off from there. Got to try the Rheingeist bubbles, and I mean Rheingeist has a cheetah that's really good. And then I started working here, and I mean it kind of just reinforces the love for craft beer, because Dana was talking about the Hefeweizen, and that's, you can ask them, that's literally my favorite. I will drink the Hefe until...
That's our second bestseller.
It's such a good beer style, and people are familiar with it now, which was not the case 10 or 15 years ago.
Right.
But people get it now. They know exactly what it is, and it is such a I don't want to call it a basic beer style, but it kind of is. Like there is a very distinct set of characteristics. It can lean one way or another towards bananas and cloves and things like that, bubblegum. But people know exactly what it is. They know what to expect, and they're comfortable with it. And I think it's a great beer to have on tap, and I think it's a great beer to kind of get people to drink something that is outside of maybe the macro realm. How about you, Keith? Road to Craft. How did you get here?
So for me, I think when I turned 21, my dad introduced me to craft beer, and
that's cool.
And I was living at home with my dad at the time, so it was always kind of a cool bonding thing between me and him. He would show me, different craft beers. So I was into that for a while, and then one Christmas, I can't remember if it was my sister or my dad, but I got a home brewing kit for Christmas.
Yeah.
And did that. It was an extract kit. Did that. Thought it was awesome.
Do you know what the beer style was, the first one?
No, not at all. No.
Mine was a Dunkelweizen.
Okay. So I was doing that for a while, the extract kits. And that was another fun thing because I'd, share it with my dad and the rest of my family. At that point in my life, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Had a liberal arts degree just because I went to college, but had no goal. So I was working in restaurants, and then I learned that Cincinnati State had a brewing science program. So I went through that. Maybe halfway through that, I started working at Listerman's in the homebrew store. So I got my start there, ended up back in the brewery for a couple years, and that's actually where I met Dana when I was working there in the store. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of the whole journey. It hasn't really been all that long yet.
But so when you talk about that, like that very beginning, like that first time you tried a beer that was not a macro beer, like, did you enjoy it? Did it take a little bit of time to kind of get into that? How did that like?
I did enjoy it, and I think until then I didn't really have much of a taste for beer. I'd tried, I don't know, some macro beers, of course, at parties and stuff, and it was fun to drink it, of course, but I didn't enjoy it for the taste. And then I don't know what it was, what the brewery was, but the first beer I had was craft beer, me. It was an IPA, and I really liked it.
It's always interesting to me, like that people talk about, beer is an acquired taste or something. And I think it's a bunch of load of crap. I don't buy it. I think that bad beer is probably an acquired taste, and there's a lot of people that don't really enjoy beer that are drinking it because they think they're supposed to, and it gets very complicated, I guess.
Yeah.
But do you, and this goes for any one of you guys, do you find yourself now going back a little bit? This is a very, very broad question. Macro beer, we've seen a lot of places starting to brew American light lagers. You guys did one, right? Or are doing one?
We're doing one, yes.
It's definitely a thing that's happening with a lot of breweries trying to brew something that kind of goes back to some of those things that some of those big guys started for whatever reason. Do you find yourself going back to some of those kind of beer styles and looking at them now as somebody that does appreciate beer in a different way than maybe you were when you were drinking macro beer, and looking at them different and be like, there is something here that could be good and could be appreciated and could be a craft version of this, like how that you start on it and it's like this is whatever, and then you drink craft beer and like, oh, this is flavor, this is what it means, and then looking back, okay, now let's look at this and figure out what it means, what this style means. There's a question in there somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always a time and a place for a beer like that. I think especially like being in the industry, you drink a ton of craft beer.
Yeah.
And, when you get home, it's kind of nice to have a plain beer, something that's very easy to drink and just quenches your thirst,
I keep a 6-pack of Milwaukee's Best Light in my fridge.
Ooh.
At all times, believe it or not.
That's a good one.
I was just about to say too, like I had a Rheingeist Bubbles keg at home.
Yeah.
The white IPA that you just tried, I just purchased the keg from us, and that's going in the kegerator this weekend. But I also, I keep a Mick Ultra. I have like a 2-tap kegerator.
Yeah.
So like Keith said, I think it's nice because, I drink craft beer here all the time. You know what I mean? Sometimes when I get home, I just want a Mick Ultra, right? It's a different taste. And I think that's important. It doesn't burn you out on craft beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, like it's time and a place for everything. And there are definitely beers that you can put in your fridge or on your kegerator, whatever it may be, that anybody who comes over that is a beer drinker will be okay with. There's people that are like, I don't really want a Hefeweizen, or I don't want an IPA. I'll just drink something else. But you put in, garage beer or Cincy Light or, Taft's Cold Boy or whatever it may be, like whatever, the American light lager from your brewery of choice would be. And everybody's fine with it. Everybody that's a beer drinker will drink it and be okay with it.
Right.
I think it's exciting that there are places that are trying to do it a little bit better, but still kind of hit those same notes that those kind of macro beers hit. I don't know. It's a weird transition and a weird thing to kind of balance out as a craft brewery.
And believe it or not, it's those like light pilsners. They're not easy to make.
Yeah, they're hard. They're extremely hard.
Because one little flaw, it shows up. Just one tiny little flaw shows up.
And I think that was the problem for so long, is that there were a lot of craft breweries that would try and fail miserably. So people are like, oh, that's,
yeah.
They don't want that from their craft brewery. Whereas now a lot of these breweries are able to do it. And it's not a strange thing to see.
Sure.
Even a small craft brewery like you guys put out something like that. But I trust this and I know it's going to be good, because the talent that is out there making beer has gotten so much further along than it was 10 or 15 years ago. It's that in itself is pretty crazy.
Who was it? Beer Dave mentioned. He said there's somebody has a beer that's so whenever someone comes in and says, "I want a beer that tastes like,"
Oh yeah.
and he said it. So they called it their light beer.
Yeah.
It tastes like,
Yeah.
or taste like, or something.
The closest thing is probably the best example of that. I don't know who makes that. Somebody makes the closest thing.
Yeah.
Somebody will tag me on something on social media or send me an email. Like, that's our beer. The closest thing is somebody's light lager.
Yeah.
I like that. You don't have to hang your hat on it. Or do whatever.
Yeah.
what do I know? But to have that option for people. Let's talk. Well, no, let's drink another beer. Let's drink this last one while we get into the bigger kind of broader topics.
Yeah, that's the Bach, the Dunkelweizen, Justin's
All right.
Bach, traditional Bach.
Tell me about this beer.
Well, that particular beer,
It's still it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's,
that's the one that I won the competition with, but that's so subjective,
oh, absolutely. Oh, I get it.
You don't hang a whole lot of hats on that, award or whatever you want to call it.
But it means it's not going to be terrible.
Right.
Like if it's terrible, it's going to get knocked off pretty quick. But
And that's one that I can drink maybe a half. It's a little too much for me. But it's another one that's pretty much so all German ingredients.
that's a good Bach. Just big, sweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet and malty.
Yeah, that's good beer.
Yeah. But you got anything to add to it, Keith?
It's not filtered. It's lagered.
Which, surprise, surprise, can clear up a beer if you actually lager a beer. That's the part of the point of it. For anybody that doesn't understand that still.
Yep.
No, it's beautiful when you look at it. It's clear, it's bright, it's brilliant. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's a pretty beer, which beer should be pretty. Not to take away from some of those styles out there that are popular that are ugly. It's fine. It's fine. The beer should be pretty. Let's kind of look bigger picture here at Cincinnati as a whole, or this bigger idea of a brewery as a whole. What about Cincinnati craft beer, or just craft beer in general right now, gets you guys excited? What maybe doesn't get you excited? What do you look at now that you're like, this is not what I signed up for? Like, what are the things that make you happy or sad about craft beer?
Can I throw in first here?
Yeah, go ahead. Of course.
So I've, since I can't tell you when, have been a huge, I don't know, if kind of what's the word? History buff.
Yeah.
With, Cincinnati's beer heritage or whatnot. Yeah. And I can't remember when I first got excited about that, and to see, and I was looking at all the old buildings that were breweries before, it started coming back, before when I say coming back, they started, redeveloping, not really redeveloping.
I can remember the moment where I got nerdy about it, and it was the first time I took one of those tours with the brewery district. Yeah, and got to go down into the big lagering tunnels, and came up then, and you're in the middle of a different building, and you're like, oh, yeah, what?
Yeah. So before even the tours and whatnot, I was just it was just to see, on a building that was vacant, that it says right up there, brewery. And it's like, that was a brewery at one time, and that was over there, and that one was over there, so was that over there. And it just, now that we are, I know we're not downtown Cincinnati, but we are Cincinnati.
Sure.
It feels good to be part of that community.
Well, I don't think people still, even some pretty nerdy people about Cincinnati beer history, like, appreciate how much beer was being made in this city and how big that scale was. When Rheingeist is big.
It was nothing.
It was nothing compared to
Christian
Moorheim took up the entire block around Rheingeist.
Yes.
They were making way more beer than what Rheingeist was. Some of the smaller breweries in that era were making more beer than what Rheingeist is making now. Like, it's just the scale of what was happening is just unheard of today, and will never happen again.
No.
It was a really cool center for beer in the country, and so I get nerdy about it too. I get it.
I didn't go through like any, old tours or anything like that.
You should.
You
should.
Talking about it, here, it's definitely on the list. I think the thing that like brings it full circle for me would be, a couple years ago, I knew one of the guys that worked at Mad Tree, and it was like my old boss's brother, but I had to go through the brewery at Mad Tree and just thought like how actually cool it is, right? And then now to get to work at one, right, and to get to see it coming, I think that's the full circle for me. I'm super happy about being. Yeah, I was just admiring the rain.
What does that sound? It's some kind of weird static.
I love the tin roof that we have. Like, you can hear everything. But I digress. I'm super excited to be in this scene. I'm super excited to be a part of like the craft brewery now, right? And getting to, make decisions and keep building our brewery to, be something that we're all proud of, right? And I'm not saying we're not proud of it now, you know what I mean? But we keep building, we keep brewing, we keep, manifesting what we want, right? Like, I'm happy to be a part of that scene.
It's amazing to me when you look at beer. Beer as a product is so simple. Like the act of drinking beer is extremely simple, and everybody does it. And like it transcends any kind of language. It transcends any kind of culture barriers. Drinking beer is a thing. Mm-hmm. But then you look at the process of making beer. At the core of it, it's pretty freaking simple. Like, you're making this sugar beverage and then putting yeast in it, and that just takes off and makes beer. But then you build on top of that, and you get these different levels of intricacies that make all of this so much fun. And like, I love that experience of the simplicity of everything, getting this level on top of craziness.
I think one thing that I'm a lot more happier about and excited about than I should be, but the Waltz White, the number 9 that you drank. Mm-hmm. Keith brewed it, right? But Keith knows where I'm going with this. We were going to dry hop it the day, that I was just working in the brewery or whatever. And I got to dry hop that, right? And I've never done it before, right? Never. And it's really nothing more than just dumping.
It tastes so good.
It's
right. It's definitely my dry hops. I dumped it.
It's nerve wracking though, doing that.
It is. It was a little nerve wracking up there, but like I don't know. It might sound dumb, and I don't really care, right? But getting to dry hop a beer, right, that is now being drank by other people, I think again brings that whole semantic full circle.
Yeah. What about you, Keith? Anything that makes you excited about beer, makes you not excited about beer?
Yeah, I think exactly what Bobby was saying and what Dana mentioned before, being able to share it, with people and to enjoy it with people. I think that's the best part of it and what makes it all worthwhile.
It seems very that side of it seems stressful. Like, and as an artist, a creator, somebody that makes things, I don't really like to watch people experiencing what I do.
Yeah,
like there's that fear of like, oh man, I made this thing and I love it.
Yeah, you're correct.
Now what? Like you sit down and you're like, hey, I made this.
When people don't like it, it does suck. That's the worst part about it.
I was about to say, I'm not naming names, but
like it's a very difficult kind of thing as somebody that puts their energy into creating something, trying to share it with other people. So I get that. But on the flip side, when somebody really does enjoy it and you see that happiness that they get from it, there's no better feeling. So
yeah,
you're always chasing that. let's one more kind of bigger question: the measure of success. And this goes for any one of you guys. When you talk about what makes a place successful, what is that thing for you? At what point do you know that this is successful, or you personally are successful in what you do here? What's your measure of success?
May I go first this time?
Go ahead.
All right. I think that's a multifaceted question, right?
Yes.
Because
Those are the best podcast questions.
they are, but I think we measure I think measuring success is different for everybody. For me, right, again, and it's still multifaceted because I have beer to sell, but I also have a team to run, right? So
You also have something inside you that needs fulfilled.
correct. And so a couple things. One, I think I'm successful here. Because like we were talking about earlier, the leadership that I have in Dana, right? Dana trusts me to do a job. I get to make decisions and I get to build what I'm good at, right? I'm good at what I do. And Dana reinforces that because I have the trust and the freedom to make decisions and to grow as I need to, right? Secondly, when it comes to your team, I think you're successful when you have a team that works well together. I think you have, you build a team that complements each other, that is always having each other's back. If you're super busy, they're going to step in and they're going to pour beer. And I don't think that is stops at them. I think that also includes us. I mean, I don't know how many times Dana's been back there pouring beer, Keith helps pour beer, I help pour beer, because we're not, there's no I in the team that we have, right? It's a team effort. And just because there's a hierarchy of responsibility, right, that doesn't mean that I'm above pouring a beer. It doesn't mean that Dana's above pouring a beer. If there's a need, we're going to fulfill it. On the sales wise, success in that realm is in a couple different areas, right? Dana has bills to pay, right? We have bills to keep this place running. But going through kegs, I mean, the first time a keg blew was,
Exciting.
Like, that was very exciting.
I can imagine.
That first keg that blew, I would consider that a success, right? A small success, but, not to undermine it, right? A win is a win. And I think to see, I mean, Saturday when we were here, we pulled out, 10 kegs, right? Like that to me is worthwhile, right? And at least a small measure of success.
I think it's a good one. I like it.
We're doing, a couple other things to maybe blow some kegs faster, but we got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? And I think we're starting, and we're just continuing to build on that. And I think that culminates into that answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. What about you guys? Measure of success.
Okay, I'll talk now.
Okay.
So for me, being the only guy in the brewery, and since I've never done this before, I'm kind of figuring out the best way to do it. right. So I'm, learning things every day, changing what I'm doing in there every day. So when I worked at Listerman's, that was a small brewery, so had my hands in everything, got to learn a lot there. But being a part of this, from the inception, I think is very cool. To have the freedom to organize, the way things run over there.
Well, yeah, when you jump into a place like Listerman that's been around forever, that's had a lot of different people, a lot of really incredible people run through those doors. There's stuff that is done a certain way, and nobody really remembers why it's done that way. It's just that was just the way we do this, and so like it's a little chaotic.
Yeah.
Whereas from here you get to start from the ground up and be like, all right, here's how I do things because this is the way I do things and the way I think things should be done.
Right.
That's fun.
And there's been things that I thought I had a good idea and this is going to work well this way, and you have to have humility to say you're wrong,
right,
and
right.
do it better the next time.
Some places struggle with that.
But then back to what Bobby said. So yeah, I'm running the brewery over there, but we've got a small staff here as well. So we're always, working together on
Right.
everything. So at the moment, the focus is getting, more business in the door early on in the week. Weekends are good, but
When do you know that is working, and when do you know that there is a success there, and like this works? Like when does that happen for you? Like what is that thing, or do you know?
Do you want to be? Can I be transparent with you? Right.
That's the whole point. Yeah.
It's a dollar amount, right? We're striving for, and I'm not going to go into the exact
no,
figures,
that's fine.
but we're striving for a certain dollar amount per day on average, right? I have a certain sales dollar that I want to make every day, right? That's what we're striving for. So doing things throughout the week, and sorry, Keith, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
no, you're
but
fine.
when we get to that point, right, that's just another drop in the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about success, it's not just like we hit one thing and we're automatically successful, right? We have to hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, right? And once we start knocking those roadblocks off, right, but there is a dollar amount, right? We are in a business to make money, right? And when we get to that dollar amount, we're going to see, hey, this works, this doesn't work. Let's build on this to make more of a dollar amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely get that as a small business owner. I understand very, very deeply some months. I like Dana. What about you? Like, what is? I get like the short term kind of vision of like here's what makes this work. What is the thing that you look at and you're like, oh, this worked? Like this is a thing that like that I did this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, both Bobby and Keith kind of summed it up pretty well, but I know when I get to a certain dollar amount,
Yeah.
On a good weekly
repeating basis.
Yes.
Again,
then,
understand that very
then I
deeply.
know that, things are, it's working like a, well-tuned engine or whatnot. And there's obviously things that we're working on to get there.
Yeah.
We're only 4 weeks into this thing, so we can't I get more, I don't know, nervous, I guess, more than anyone, and I should. So, I do my best not to look too like, what's wrong with that guy? He's a stiff right now. Why? But, these guys are, and again, I'll say it again. Everyone has just been fabulous. I mean, from the brew house to mopping the floors.
Right.
It's just, I couldn't be happier, and we'll get to those goals. It's just going to take a little time.
Right.
That's key.
Right. I get that. What do you guys want people to know about DVD that you think they don't know already?
Well, it's my initials.
Correct.
It is his initials. It's not. There's not a video store. You're not going to get
digital
any
video
kind
disc.
of. There's no actual DVDs in here.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was like a generational breakdown of how many people walk in the door and don't know what a DVD is
Right.
versus people that do.
What does that mean?
Right.
I've been calling my beers DVD Brews for 20 years. So, I said that's what I'm going to call it. So,
It's opening down the street, Blue Brewing Company.
That's funny.
No, this place it captures exactly what a neighborhood brewery should be. The beer is good. I am excited to watch how everything keeps growing and evolving. Staff is great. You guys are hitting everything right where you should be, especially at 4 weeks. I know that the bar gets set higher and higher every time somebody opens up, and it's hard to kind of sometimes live up to some of those expectations that people have. I've been sitting at Rheingeist for years, and I came in here, and this is I've been open for 4 weeks. I get that. You guys are doing exactly what you should be doing, and just keep up the good work. And I'm excited to do this show again in a couple years, and revisit everything we talked about, and we'll be back before a couple of years, but it's fun to watch kind of how a place grows, and I hope that people enjoy that process as much as I do.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
guys.
Cool. Thank you.
If you haven't been here, come here. The address, it's somewhere on Loveland Madeira Road. You get off at the Loveland exit and you start driving.
1555.
1555. It's right. So
You were
can't-
correct. It is somewhere on Loveland, Madeira.
But you'll see it if you start driving. You'll just see it. If you come from Loveland, you'll see it on the left. If you come from 275, you'll see it on the right, and it's just you'll see it. You won't miss it. And if you do, you turn around and come and turn into the parking lot. That's fine. Come here, drink the beer, hang out, experience what this place is, and share it with your friends. In fact, bring your friends. There's plenty of room on the patio. There's plenty of room today. It's patio is surprisingly empty today with all the rain. Just come here, hang out. We'll be back next week. This episode, I always forget to mention this. This episode is sponsored, sort of, by Cincy Beer Week. Everybody go to cincybeerweek.com, and there's some fun stuff happening this fall, and you should know about it. If you like what I do, if you don't like what I do, no matter what, you can always go to thegnarlygnome.com/support and support. You can support me and tell me exactly what I should do differently, and I'll ignore it. I promise I'll take it into account. Thank you guys very much. We'll be back next week. I think I always forget to look beforehand to remember who we're talking to next week, but it's somebody fun, and we'll drink a bunch of good beers because that's what we do. It's Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft.